This week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob is not brought to you by a sponsor, just like always. I am still, however, collaborating with Tyler Hansen and Harley Bronwyn to support their upcoming fan film, Scream the Fan Favourite. If you would like to support their project, please visit the Indiegogo campaign, or you can also learn more about the project by listening to episode 28 of the podcast. As little as $5 can make a huge difference, so please give them a hand if you can. Enjoy the show. Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighborhood film snob, and I'm still in hell. I think I forgot to mention that in the last episode because I was truly in heaven. But as you may have heard when Tina interviewed me, I am trapped in hell. My time machine got knocked off course. I'm no longer lost in time, but I am amongst the flames and the demons, and it's not too bad. They like to talk about horror films, so that's could be worse. There's lots of heavy metal, all sorts of stuff. It's where I want to be. So don't listen to your local church. The hell's okay. We are continuing the conversation about horror films being October and everything spooky. And when I want to talk about spooky things, I bring along my spookiest friend, my oldest friend, and the person who got me into horror films. I don't know if he knows that, but we'll talk about that more soon. But please welcome back after a bit of a hiatus, the very spooky and very clever Josh Sacco.
Hello.
I was waiting for you to throw a pumpkin head at me or go
Yeah,
hello.
I know the spooky catchphrase. Hello.
That's pretty spooky. I do think of you as my spooky friend. Like you did get me into horror, but also you were just always into I don't want to say weird stuff, but it is weird stuff. But it was like you were like, I'm not into the normal stuff. I don't want to watch we talked about this when we talked about cartoons a while ago. You were like, I want to watch the Nickelodeon stuff. I want to watch the Real Monsters. I want to watch the stuff that not all the other kids are watching. You were the first person I knew that was into Tim Burton and Nightmare Before Christmas and stuff like that. And I didn't even say welcome. But welcome back to the show, Josh. Is what I'm saying correct? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I was really into that, like the weird stuff. Like I had a Goosebumps party. I'm pretty sure. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. And you had the Night at Horrorland video game.
Oh yeah.
And there was I think there was masks or something that we could make. I have vague recollections of it.
There's that. I was thinking about it the other day because I had the Goosebumps party, but it wasn't dress up. And then one person thought it was dress up, and that was Darth Vader.
You know that popular Goosebumps character, Darth Vader.
And she was like, and it was a girl too, and I felt because it was like a neighbor, and I felt really bad. She when she saw everyone else wasn't dressed up. She took up the mask and got angry and cried and ran out. And I feel
I mean, it is very funny, but you do, yeah, at that age, that sucks. That makes me think of, do you remember that episode of The Office where they go to the Diwali festival and Michael thinks it's a costume party?
Yeah.
That was a good party. I do remember that. That was, grade 4?
Yeah, something like that. When Goosebumps were at its peak.
I loved Goosebumps.
Yeah.
I've probably got a few of them. Actually, I think at my dad's place. I think most of my Goosebumps books are at...
TV shows were chilling, especially
Haunted Mask?
Yeah, I loved Monster Blood, and I don't know if they did Monster Blood. I like the book, but the one with the dad who turned into the
Don't Go Into the Basement?
Yeah, Don't Go to the Basement.
And the twist ending is so messed up.
And the dummy one, the dummy one always got me as well.
I also remember there was the one where they went to the camp, and then the twist was that they weren't actually on Earth. It was a really weird.
Yeah.
It was a really weird one where there's a werewolf abducting people from the camp or whatever, and people's clothes were missing and stuff. But then at the very end, it was this was a training camp to get ready for our next adventure. We're going somewhere really strange, a place called Earth, and I was like, what? Like, wait, what?
There's another Goosebumps book called The Blob, and
Yes.
does that have the Invisible Kid in it? I can't remember. Oh no, is that a different one? I can't remember if that's
There was like a blob type one. And then there was, I think the Invisible Kid was something else.
yeah. Anyway, it was from the perspective of like this imaginary person, and you find
Okay.
out the imaginary person is human and everyone else is like a monster. But you can't see the human. They're like the imaginary friend, and everyone else is a monster. I can't remember what book that was, but I really like that one. But yeah, the TV shows were chilling.
I remember. I think the first episode was Night in Terror Tower, and there
Oh
was
yeah,
like it was like the Executioner's Hood or whatever. The Haunted Mask was my favorite one.
yeah,
That was really cool. And those books had the best artwork. Like
yeah.
that cover art. But like before I was into comic books, like Goosebumps book, that was like like the only art maybe better than Goosebumps was Animorphs. Um, um, but yeah, I loved Goosebumps. They made a couple of Goosebumps movies. They're pretty fun. I've only seen the first one. I haven't seen the second one, but the first one was great. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I always remember the game where you have to select the pumpkins in order, and it goes, the scarecrow walks at midnight. I don't know if you know that, but going down to the sewer is the scariest part of that game, and the werewolf run.
I don't think I got to play because I remember I think you got it for your birthday. And this is a really long introduction to what we're talking about today, but that's okay. And I think like there was an issue with it installing. So like by the time like it loaded up the menu screen, like my dad arrived to pick me up. So I was like, oh, cool game.
Good work, Windows 98.
It might have been 95 at that point.
Yeah, probably.
Listen to I Was a Teenage Film Snob, where we promote old Windows systems, which was superior. Well, 98 could have Encarta 95 and 98. So,
Oh, Encarta.
Encarta, that's a sick reference for anyone who's old like us.
Yeah.
So you got me into horror films. You and our group of friends, but particularly you, because I remember we would do movie nights whenever we would do like hangouts or whatever. Like you go and have sleepovers at a friend's house, and obviously video games is a big part of it. But I remember to go to the video store, and I was the wimp. Like when people listen to the show, like they hear me talk about movies a lot, and I talk a lot about horror. I get the feeling people are like, oh, he must have been a horror fan all the time. But I was the wimp. Like you guys had to like make so many sacrifices to get me to watch something. Like we watched a movie called Sphere, which I don't really remember, but like I remember you guys being really bored by it, and Tremors, which is a cult classic, and I haven't seen it since. But I remember you guys not being all that impressed with that film either, just because I was so terrified of horror.
I love it now, though. Tremors is awesome.
I haven't gone back and watched it, but I've got to give it another spin. And then by the time I did get into horror, and I was saying this to Tina a few weeks ago, I was like, I built up my tolerance. I've tried everything to catch up with you guys. I was like, guys, I like horror now. And you guys were like, yeah, we're not really interested anymore. I was like, I was too late. But that didn't bother me. By that point, I was hooked. Like I was just like, this is awesome. So we always talk about like the origin things on the show. Where does it begin for you? What is it about horror and monsters and creepy things that really, I guess, gelled to you at such, and when did it begin?
I think I've said this before, but I reckon most of my movie knowledge and introduction of things comes from like watching movies with my dad.
Yeah.
So, and him not putting a proper filter in place for my age. So I was exposed to a lot of things like at a young age. Not like terrible like stuff, but like probably more than I should have seen. So watching The Blob, like the original Blob, like just I'll have this image forever cemented in my mind of like dead people like gasping for air in like a blob, like jelly mass. I don't know, just remembering them random things, and I don't know when it started, but just I think just being exposed to it, and
Yeah.
maybe taking interest in like the unusual and weird, and there's also a bit of thrill in being scared as well. But there's a lot of like old movies which have like I can't remember them. There's like this movie I can't remember the name, but like this kid goes under his bed and there's like this whole monster world. and it's a really old movie, and it's like it just scare you, but like it's probably
Mm.
not now. But it's like they're like the sort of movies like Never Ending Story where they're like sort of meant for kids, but sort of not. Like
Yeah, those 80s films in particular, like they walk that line where it's like it's for kids, but also have nightmares for weeks. Like,
yeah, yeah. I have all these like memories of these random movies where I was like, this is for kids, but like sort of like older like teenagers, but you know like they leave like weird nightmares, you know, or weird memories in your head.
well, the last time you were on, I think we talked about Gremlins and Ghostbusters, and those are kind of a couple of good examples. Well, they're not really horror films, but they will leave you with nightmares for a little while. Like, there's some
Yeah,
pretty, especially if you're young.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and what is it about the creepy and the macabre? Because Tina was asking me about this a few weeks ago, and I gave an answer, and I feel like my answer is always changing. Because I did say, I was like, well, part of it for me was, I grew up in a relatively strict household when it came to the entertainment we consumed. So there was an element of the taboo for me where I'm like, oh, it's not allowed. So that's therefore I want to see it. And then part of it was the challenge of like, can I not get, how far can I go before I get scared, and how far are they going to push the envelope, and how gross are they going to make it? Um, and then last week, Harley Bronwyn came on, the actress from that Scream film, and she put it so eloquently and beautifully, which was like, look, it's just the idea of kind of manufactured um, emotional release, where you can watch a drama and you can cry and that sort of thing, but horror takes it to a different place. Like, I'm not doing it justice. Like, she spoke so like as it eloquently and beautifully, and like really like waxed poetic about why she likes horror. And I kind of threw in some comments, ham-fisted the way I do. But that was her version of it. But what was it for you?
That attracted me to like the macabre.
What is it about the macabre? What is it that, like, because not everyone, the most people don't like it. So why are we so
I
different?
think aesthetically, I couldn't pinpoint why I like it. It's just one of the things like I like it because I like it. But I don't like gross stuff. Like I don't I like horror stuff like skeletons and you know graveyards and like the sort of like the traditional sort of like horror stuff. But I don't like the gory stuff. I don't like seeing like broken legs spew blood and stuff. So I like the actual creepy stuff, not the gory stuff. I think.
Mm,
I think like there's just a lot of creativity there, and it's like a different side of life. Like because it is a bit of a taboo thing because everyone doesn't like talking about death, and I think that's where it gets the appeal.
mm,
Because it's like this like sort of yeah, it's like the opposite of everything else.
mm.
I don't know, like aesthetically, it's cool. Like it's just a hard thing to answer. Like I can't pinpoint it.
That's where I am as well, by the way. Look, because I answered Tina, and afterwards I was like, I don't know if I'm 100% happy with my answer. Like, the answer I gave isn't wrong, but there's just so much to it. Like, why do I like Jason? Well, he looks cool. Like,
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? But why is it cool that there's a guy with a hockey mask chasing
yeah,
half naked girls around with a knife? Like, that's not, if you ask people today, they're like, well, that's not cool. Like, but
yeah,
there is something cool about it, and I can't really like put my finger on it. Why?
yeah. I mean, like I think about the things I grew up with, like liking skeletons and zombies and bugs and um, it's just like the non-normal stuff that has like that appeal.
Mm.
Yeah, so like it's a terrible answer, but I feel like it'd be like for me like artistically, it's like a cool creative space.
Well, I think that is a good answer. I do like that answer there, because you're right. You are very creative. We talked about obviously um, the games that you've been working on, and you as an artist as well. And from a visual and I suppose artistic point of view, horror and monsters that are so engaging and unique. Like, it's not the everyday. You don't see it, so you can do some really twisted, creative things there. Like, I was talking about the xenomorph a few episodes back, and I was like, is there a better monster out there than the xenomorph? Like, I can't think of one. Even now, like, I like Freddy, I like Jason, but show me something that is so beautifully designed, so elegant, so cruel and vicious, but also like nothing comes close to it for me. I still can't. Like, I've been talking about this for
I,
over.
I, yeah, Yeah, I don't think anyone's made a horror monster, or at least sci-fi horror monster, that even comes close to Alien. Like,
Yeah, and like most monsters are kind of gross and clunky, like but the xenomorph is just like, oh my goodness, like it really is art, like it's perfect.
mm,
Um, yeah, and I'll throw out a name that I always think of when I think about you and monsters, and that's Guillermo del Toro. Um,
yeah,
obviously, which I think he's a really good example of beauty in horror, and elegance in
yeah,
horror as well.
yeah. I feel like he does. I feel like his style is so great because you definitely can like tell like it has like this really like it walks like so many like lines and then blends together nicely without tipping too far. Like it's never too gory or it's never too like it makes like it likes like dancing with the mundane and the creepy.
Mm,
Um, and then it makes it something poetic and beautiful. And I really like the way he does that. Even like Hellboy, like it's got this like I don't know what it is, like that steampunk vibe, but he keeps it like in like suburbia or like underground and like cities and stuff. And I really like the way he sort of tackles them things.
he probably is. I don't want to say the modern horror master because I don't think there is a definitive one, and like people will point to numerous different names. Like, no, 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 this person's a horror master. But I think from a monster point of view and from an artistic and creative point of view, I don't think anyone comes close to the elegance he brings to his creatures.
Yeah, I forgot because we talked about him ages ago. And you're like, "What's your favorite movies?" And I completely forgot that he's done like a ton of like other ones. Even like, is it We Come Out at Night or the one with I think Katie Holmes? Is it something to do with like little fairies hiding like the
Oh,
apparatus?
don't go under. Is it like don't look under the stairs? Don't be afraid of the dark.
Be Afraid of the Dark, I think, and I really like that movie. And that's a horror movie that's sort of the same sort of style where it's like creepy but sort of cool and eerie, and yeah.
Mm. Yeah, people always jump to like Hellboy and Pan's Labyrinth and now Shape of Water,
Well, to
which
be fair, Hellboy's
eh.
not really a horror movie. It's not really a good example for this.
No, 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 of course, absolutely. But there's some.
Pan's Labyrinth is better. I feel like Pan's Labyrinth is like a good example of his work.
Mm. The second Hellboy, I think, kind of leans more into it. Like it's not horror, but it's got vampires, it's got monsters. Like this, it's got the infamous market scene that people have mixed feelings about.
Oh yeah, me.
Yeah. All I need to do if I ever want to like rile you up is just be like, "Do you remember that market scene?" And I won't even have to say Hellboy. You're like, "Yes."
I hate it. I hate it. The rest of the movie is awesome. Just not that market scene.
I love that plant creature. I think that plant creature is so cool. And I think I talked about it the last time we were talking about Guillermo. And I was like, that to me is proof that like Poison Ivy will work in a movie, like Swamp Thing will work in a movie. Like if you can do that plant creature, you can do those heroes.
Yeah,
Because for me, it all comes back to comic books and horror. So,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
But I was trying to think of like where we are, like the Del Toro tangent, sort of.
Well, yeah, here's an example. I imagine we'll probably talk about him more as the episode goes on. I'm not sure. I'm honestly, when we get to your list, and we'll get there shortly, I don't know what to expect because I know that you like horror elements and monsters and stuff, but I don't really hear you talk about horror movies that much. So I know that we watched them as a kids. Like, I talked about Final Destination in my episode. I talked about The Faculty and like kind of those movies, those early movies we watched to get in.
Yeah. What are your movies? Tell me what your movies.
So I didn't do favorites. What I did was I just chose the 5 that scared me the most, and I chose movies that scared me at different points in my life. So the first movie that really scared me was Final Destination. I don't know if you remember this, but we were watching it at a friend's house, and the first kill that comes up is when the guy gets choked by the plug in the bathroom. And at the end of that kill, I was on all fours, and you guys all looked at me and laughed. You're like, "You okay?" I was like, "That was really scary," like because I'd never seen death in a film like that before. And then the rest of the film's pretty wacky. Like, and then like it's so like and like not silly, just like it's the kills are a bit more exaggerated. Like Stifler from American Pie gets his head cut off by a bit of metal and stuff. So that was my first one, and then it was The Descent, which I don't know if you've ever seen The Descent, but it's a wonderful British horror film.
Yeah, I can't remember it. Is it aliens or demons? I can't remember. Isn't it
like cave monsters.
Yeah.
And they look a bit like orcs, but it was just it wasn't so much the monsters that were scary, it was the human nature, like how quickly friends turn on each other to survive. and then my third one was The Hills Have Eyes, the 2006 remake. And that wasn't so much scary, it just lingered. It's one of those, all these films lingered with me. Like it just, they would sit with me for days afterwards. I remember I watched Hills Have Eyes because, and I'm going to drop a name that you haven't heard in a decade probably, a girl we worked with called Josie at the video store. Um, she loved horror, but like her boyfriend at the time was like, "Oh, why scare yourself for?" Uh, did you think I was going to drop a Levent reference today? Why scare yourself for? So she recommended it. She's like, "No, it's good. You'll like it." And I did like it, and but it did like stick with me for a while because it's like mutants eating hearts and abducting people and stuff. And then was Sinister, which came out about 8 years ago, which I never would have watched because it didn't look like my kind of film at all. But then I heard the director interviewed, and I was like, "Oh, that actually does sound pretty cool." And that one scared me. And then the last one on my list was Hereditary. That was the last film to really scare me, which is a dark, bleak, sad film.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think I watch horror much anymore, but these aren't like my favorite horror movies. More like the movies that left like an unsettling feeling or scared me growing up. So that was the list, wasn't it?
I'm kind of like, I mean, look, the rules are always pretty fast and loose here at the show. Like I don't make people like, I don't want to be a tyrant. Like I just want to have fun. So like I kind of was, I just want to talk about horror for October. That was my feeling. So I went with movies that scared people the most, simply because I know that not a lot of people who have been guests before watch horror. Like most people who've been on the show are not horror fans. And the good thing about that is that you can be scared by a film and it not be a horror film. Like there's plenty of films out there that are terrifying that aren't,
Yeah.
Bloodsuckers and The Walking Dead and stuff like that. But I thought that was a nice, easy concept instead of being like, tell me your 5 favorite horror films. But I'll go for 5 films that left you unsettled. That's nice and creepy and macabre.
Yeah, well, I in true Josh nature, I took it pretty literally. So like I did grab movies that they're not my favorite movies. They're actually, well, a few of them are, but they're more like that, like actually sort of like left me remembering them growing up. So they weren't, yeah. I think there's a difference between my favorite sort of horror movies and the ones that sort of affected me.
I remember later on, towards the end of high school, it might have even been after high school, but I was like, I found this horror film. You have to watch it. And you were kind of over horror, but I was like, no, like like it's messed up. And we liked Saw. I think we'd only seen the first 2, and we liked those because they were horror, but they were more like kind of intellectual. I would say it's so funny to like talk about the Saw franchise as like intellectual now. Like I love those movies, but like they're pretty ridiculous. We liked it because they were a bit more like Seven. They were a bit more like driven and stuff. I won't talk too much about Seven in case it does come up because I know you like that movie.
Yeah.
But I was like, you have to watch this film. It's messed up, and it was Hostel. And I remember like towards the end of it, like some pretty gross stuff towards the end of it, and you were like, oh. I was like, finally, I got him. After all these years, I showed him a movie that was tough for him. I was so proud of myself for making you be mildly traumatized by seeing a woman cut her own eyeball out. So I would like to formally apologize for making you watch Hostel. All right, we should dive into it. I'm really interested to see what it is. If your number one film is Nightmare Before Christmas again, though, because you've already done it 2 or 3 times.
That would have been again.
No, it's fine. I don't mind.
I mean, like, what was it? Favorite films and then favorite animated films.
Yeah. And we're gonna do 90s soon. So like, I was like, I wonder whether like, I know he loves that film, but is he just doing a bit where like every time he comes on the show, he's gonna mention Nightmare Before Christmas, as because like either way, it's genius. Like if it's just happens to be it, that's great, and if you're just doing it as a bit, that's also hilarious.
The thing coming on these podcasts, I always feel like I don't know anything about movies, but then when I come on, I was like, no, I actually know a lot about movies. I've actually watched a lot of movies. I just don't remember it.
That's everyone. Like everyone who's been on here is like, oh, like I'll do it because I want to, and I like the idea of it, but I don't know much about them, and everyone like has heaps to say. Just most people don't keep a list of every film they watch every single year. I think I'm the only one who does that. So,
It's pretty cool though.
alrighty, what is first on your list of spooky movies?
I'm going to kick this off with probably the first thing that traumatized me, and that's Pet Cemetery.
Pet Sematary. I watched that for the first time ever this year. So the good thing is I can actually talk about it because I finally seen it. The last time we spoke, I hadn't seen it. You gave me a quiz because do you remember? Like you were quizzing me on 80s films, and Pet Sematary was the one answer I couldn't get. I thought it was Poltergeist, and since then I've seen it, so I've redeemed myself. Tell me about Pet Sematary.
All right. So the premise is I can't remember if they buy the house, but so just for instance, I looked up every other film before coming on this show except for that one. That's how much I don't want to like remember that movie. But I think the premise is what happens is the kid gets hit by a truck while playing on the road, which is already a terrifying start.
Yeah, I waited till I had a toddler before I watched that movie.
Yeah, and then anyway, they bury it. I think I don't know, they bury it somewhere close by, and then they don't know that they're burying it on an Indian burial ground, or they get some foreshadowing that they shouldn't be burying in that place, or they get told that someone goes I can't remember whether they get told that if they read it somewhere.
I can tell you, so because I've watched it recently, so I can fill in the blanks. But yeah, they moved to this new place. He's a doctor, and their cat gets hit by a car. That's the first thing that happens.
Oh yeah.
And the neighbor across the road, played by Fred Gwynne, who was Herman Munster in The Munsters, and he was also the judge in My Cousin Vinny. He's like, I can show you a place, and like there's like a cemetery, and like he buries the cat, and the cat comes back to life.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And then after his son is hit by the son is hit by a truck, the family leaves, but he stays back to like finish some things, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna bury my son up in the cemetery and bring him back. And then he comes back, but like he's not quite right. Like they don't come back normal; they come back really weird and kind of evil.
Yeah. I mean, I should have looked it up because that's the whole point of the movie, The Pet Cemetery. But I like this for me left me with nightmares because I watched it as a kid and like a young kid, and I just had nightmares from it.
There's some pretty graphic stuff. Like there's the football player, I think, who has like his brain exposed and stuff.
Yeah.
And like it's typical Stephen King, but it's really disturbing. Like that's one I didn't know anything about it for the longest time, and I didn't watch it because I was like, oh, I don't want to see dead animals. Like that was the reason I didn't watch it. And then I heard more about it in a documentary I watched like in the last year or so, and like no, it's about a dead kid. I'm like, well, I don't really want to watch a movie about a dead kid either, but I've already bought it, so like I will watch it.
Yeah.
But it's dark, it's bleak. And then and then obviously like spoilers for a 30, 40-year-old film. But like the dad has to then kill his son like again. And like when it happens, the kid's like, oh man, no fair. And it's just like, oh my god.
And the wife ends up getting killed as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's
comes back and then and then like just the amount of ooze like dripping off them as well. I remember that, but I couldn't look this up again. Like just that's how much it like left a mark on me. Yeah.
It's look, Stephen King is not known for writing the most pleasant, light stories, but I think Pet Sematary might be one of the darkest. Like even there's some cool adventure stuff in there. It's like it's very reminiscent of like 80s Spielberg. Where it's like it's friends on an adventure trying to solve problems, and like Dreamcatcher is just wacky. And Misery, while very dark, is like a very like suspenseful. But Pet Sematary is bleak. It's like, hey, dead cats, dead children, deal with it. Like that should have been on the poster.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a well-made film. It's good. Like it's a good film, but it's not one I need to go back and watch anytime soon. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's like what kicked off. I mean, like that didn't give me an interest in like horror stuff, but it definitely like left.
You like more of this, please.
That was definitely the one that like gave me nightmares as a kid. But yeah.
When was the last time you watched it?
Probably like then, and I probably saw it on TV randomly, and probably just went no.
and I knew going into it when I finally watched it this year. I knew that the kid gets hit by a truck, and there are so many truck scenes before the child actually gets hit by the truck. Every
Yeah,
single time I was like, here it comes. I was like, okay, it still hasn't. It happens like four. There's like four fake outs. Just like here we go. Okay, it's not gonna like. It's just it was so like it gave me so much anxiety. So
yeah,
by the time I'm like, just kill the kid already. Like, just
yeah.
get it over with so I can deal with this really upsetting thing. We can move forward.
I always remember the shoes on the road. That's what
Yeah,
I. Yeah.
what a haunting image.
Yeah.
Kids' shoes on the road. Is there any? I can't remember if there's any blood, but it's just like a
Yeah.
very innocent image of just like saddle shoes or sneakers or whatever they are, and
Yeah.
no one wearing them. Like the body is gone.
Yeah.
Um, Oof, that's tough. I'm getting weak in my old age. Like I've talked about this a lot lately. I just feel like as I get older, I struggle to watch like creepy stuff more, like unsettling stuff. There are movies that I would have watched before had a kid that I could never watch now. Where I'm just like, you know what? And Pet Cemetery is very close to being one of those. I'm like, you know what? I've seen it. I may never need to watch that again. Like,
Yeah.
not until she's like a teenager, and then I'm like, all right, she's not going to be hit by a car as a toddler. She's got her own wits about her. We can now watch Pet Cemetery and have a good time with it.
Yeah.
uh,
My next one is The Shining.
oh, what a great movie! I love The Shining.
Yeah. I mean, like it's not scaring me out to watch, but it's definitely like unsettling for many different reasons. You know, just the supernatural mystery around the motel.
The Overlook Hotel, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and just like the change, like so, like I mean, he's already sort of like abuser, but like then like it's just like takes it that step forward with like the insanity and like the iconic running through the hedges and stuff.
I I think it's still scary. Like in most parts, like for the most part, it's not. But that room 237 scene with the old woman in the bathtub, like
Yeah,
that's still scary. It's brilliant though. I watched it. It's on my list to watch this October. I'm working my way through some horror films at the moment, and I watched it again. Oh, I watched it in the last year or so, and it's my favorite Kubrick film. I know that people don't like it because it skips things from the book, but I think it's just perfectly shot. It's cast really well. I know that Shelley Duvall didn't have the best time in the film. I think Kubrick was quite cruel to her. Um, but if you just take the movie for what it is and ignore, kind of the behind the scenes stuff, it's just so well executed. Like even that little kid, just like, "Hello, I'm Tony." Like
yeah,
it's so creepy. Uh,
yeah,
I remember we sat down to watch it, you, Tina, and I, one Halloween a few years back before I lived in this house. Where I was like, we'll watch horror films together, and we watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I loved, but you guys were like, oh, she just screams for the last half an hour. And they were like, let's watch The Shining. And The Shining is like a 2.5 hour long film, and the first hour of it is just talking, and like you guys were like falling asleep on the couch. I was like, all right, well we can watch The Shining another time. And that sort of commentary on the film is just more. We just watched an hour and 40 minutes of screaming, and now we're very tired.
yeah.
Um, but it's so good. Like Scatman Crothers, like they call it Shining. He's got like, um,
Yeah.
it's yeah,
I don't know. I like the mix because it's like there's like you have the supernatural element that's just influencing like this person, and they fall like into like this sort of darkness as well. So you got like these things like pitted against each other, and then being stuck in the snow, like that's like I feel like it's a really good combo of things. Um, and
it
then the
is.
intensity just builds, and they're all just thrown against each other at different points.
It really taps into. I was talking about one thing that I've been talking about on the show over the last couple of episodes is why certain like what is horror to different people. So like at the end of it, like Tina picked up that on my list there's a common thread between all the films that scared me most, and that thread was isolation and a lack of control. Like every one of those films are people who are outside, are isolated, they don't have a support system, and they have no control over those circumstances. And I was like, I guess that's what I'm afraid of most. And The Shining is very much a film like that as well. You know, you've got isolation, 3 people stuck in a hotel for 6 months. And and no control. There's a kind of a lack of control there as well. You know, Jack Nicholson starts to go insane and loses control of his faculties and just becomes crazed killer. And his wife and kid will have no control over their own safety because he's just running around with an axe for 3 hours. Like it's really frightening.
I think that what makes it a good horror movie as well is because like most of these like horror movies is like you go into a place and there's something unknown sort of chasing you, but like for them the unknown is like someone familiar to them, which makes it more haunting as well. Even though there's other elements, at play here, I feel like it's scarier having that, the protector of the family, sort of come after, one who's supposed to be protecting them.
I think I always find that some of the scariest. I remember when I watched the Amityville Horror remake in 2005. I haven't watched it since. That was a film that scared me quite a bit as well, starring Ryan Reynolds. And the idea that a father would go insane and then chop his wife and children up with an axe, I was just like, that's frightening. And that's what The Shining is, and that's what Hereditary is to an extent as well. It's like a family should be this bond that supports each other through the toughest time. Instead, they're all pushing each other away and like isolating themselves from each other, and therefore, really like divide themselves, and therefore being a weaker unit is really quite scary. But also like a great story tool, like to do that.
Yeah.
But it's really effective. But no, I love The Shining. And somehow, I don't know, like whether people would agree with me. Maybe this isn't the right word, but it is kind of fun. I think it is kind of a fun film. Like even though it is, very very drab and very very dark and long, I think there is some fun there. Like not all the ghosts are horrible. Like the woman in room 237 is not so nice, and the O'Grady twins aren't so nice. But then they got that bartender. Like he's pretty cool. Like
I think it's classic Stephen King. Like there's a little bit of like dark humor there. And that's what makes it more horrifying because you got like all these characters that are sort of like chill, making jokes, or it just throws you off because it's classic Stephen King. Like there's always something absurd sort of in the corner.
Interesting to see that you've got 2 Stephen King films already. I wonder if we'll get any more. But The Shining, I can't speak highly enough of The Shining. I think it's a wonderful film. Did you end up watching the sequel?
Yes. I can't remember if I liked it or not. I think because I really like the way, I don't know if there's like some sort of like you have to shoot Stephen King movies and TV shows like this, but they all do have a similar style. So I don't know if there's like someone's like, this is the way you have to do these movies, but I really like Stephen King movies, like all of them. Like, and I really like this, and I like the connections and like the filling the holes. I think it goes for a while.
It does. I loved the book. I remember when I read The Shining, someone said, "Oh, you're gonna read Doctor Sleep next?" I was like, "No, I will eventually," but I feel like Danny really needs. Now that Danny lives within me, like now that I've read that book and I've had him in my mind, I want Danny to have some peace. So I'm not going to read Doctor Sleep because I don't know what it's about, and I want that little boy to be able to just exist and have a nice childhood before I'm sure things go awfully wrong in Doctor Sleep. Doctor Sleep was a wonderful sequel because it had almost nothing to do with The Shining. Yeah. Like it's a brand new story, and obviously they did the movies well. I do like the book better than the movie, which isn't really a surprise, especially with Stephen King. The books are often better than the films. Yeah. But I really loved that it became this whole other thing, and like it's this cult to feed off The Shining, and it's this whole he took it in a very unpredictable way, and therefore made it enjoyable. But yes, that film is long. I've only seen it the one time, but I will try and watch that this October as well again because
I thought it was a good movie, and I liked going back to like the hotel and all the bits and pieces and like the references and it's cool.
Nice one. What's next on your list?
7.
I thought it might be on there. Did we watch that together the first time we saw it?
I think so. Yeah.
I've got so much to say, but I'll let you start because this is your list, and I keep just commandeering.
No, it's fine. You're better explaining. This is my thing. Like I can remember bits and pieces, but I can't remember the plots. Some of these things. So I haven't rewatched them in a while. But from the Seven's like an awesome movie. It's it's unsettling, but it's actually a really well written movie. But essentially, like he's like an investigator, and he starts coming across these murders, and they sort of figure out that they're like the seven deadly sins is pretty much the gist of it, and he gets entangled in it, and like this sort of like killer starts playing mind games with the investigator, or like a sort of like cat and mouse type thing.
That's very much it. Yeah. So Brad Pitt's like a new or a younger detective on the force, and Morgan Freeman's like a more experienced, older, more seasoned veteran. And the first thing they discover is an obese man barbed wired to a chair with like beans down his shirt. I haven't seen this movie in 10 years, but I remember that image so clearly.
Yeah, that one I remember.
And I think the idea was like the killer held a gun to his head and was like, keep eating. And he ate so much like his stomach split.
Yeah.
And then next was, what was next?
Was it the last?
That one's in the middle of the film. The last one is full on. I think Envy. I think it was like a woman with her face cut off.
Yeah.
Or like a cheating husband or something. And it was like written in blood on the wall. And then Sloth, obviously, the person covered in bed sores who looks like a corpse. I remember seeing it and just being like, what is this movie? Like, what is this? This is crazy. It's crazy how good this is. It's crazy how messed up. That last one is the perfect use of I guess like getting the audience to create it in their mind, because you don't see anything, you just see what the device is, and you know immediately like, Jesus Christ. Like that, like I mean, like a lesser filmmaker would show you that. They're like, hey, we're going to show you what that looks like. But Fincher is so clever and such an expert at crafting suspense and horror. Whereas, like, no, you don't need to see the outcome. Here's the picture of the device used, and I'll leave that up to you to figure out. And it's really horrifying.
And the ending's great, and how Brad Pitt gets caught up in it is really awesome. Like there's a few good twists in there, and I think because it's like a horror thriller, and I really like thriller movies, and I just thought it was like a different kind of horror movie that I thought was really clever, and it was like for me like I feel like that gluttony scene is like scarier to me than like just like someone cut up with blood everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I know Seven was a big inspiration for Saw. Like that was one thing where it's like the idea of like a killer who doesn't really kill his victims, like, and making more of a detective story. I heard this really great comparison where someone talked about Seven and they're like, Seven is a Batman film. They're like, Seven is a Batman film. Like they don't wear costumes, but Morgan Freeman is Batman. Like he is very calculating. He knows everything. He takes his time. He understands how the world works. And Brad Pitt is Robin. He's very enthusiastic. He runs in too quickly. Sometimes he makes bad judgment calls. And Kevin Spacey is the Riddler. Like, and when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, like that's exactly what that movie is. Like it's absolutely a Batman. Like, it's constantly raining. Like it's exactly. And then the Batman came out this year. I'm like, oh, this is a lot like Seven.
Yeah. No, it's really cool.
But it's a great movie. And like Fincher's just got maybe the best record of films. Like I'm trying to think of another director that comes close, but
what
like
else?
Fight Club.
Oh yeah.
Panic Room, which is really good. Panic Room's really underrated.
Panic Room's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Gone Girl. He did Zodiac.
Shit.
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah, that's almost like a perfect record.
Like I don't think he's got a bad film with a bunch. There's probably there's probably one or two that I'm missing. But yeah, he's got a really good record. Seven probably is my favorite. I haven't watched Seven in a while. There's a girl from my film class when I was 18 who borrowed that DVD, and I still don't have it back.
Yeah.
But I do have it on Blu-ray now. I ordered it from the UK. I was like, I need to have 7 so I can watch it again.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I still would put it under horror. Like, yes, it's more of a detective thriller, that sort of thing. But there's
Yeah.
horrifying stuff in there. Like, there's stuff that will unsettle you and sit with you. That lust scene is, like, to this day, as I haven't watched the film in over a decade, and like I still remember everything about that scene. I still remember wrath. I still remember, John Doe walking into the police precinct, giving himself up because they can't find him. It's great. It's such a good movie.
Yeah.
I was trying to pick out what I'm going to watch tonight, and now I might throw that pile away and watch 7 instead. Because boy, what a great movie that is.
Yeah. It's always on like my rewatch list. It just sits there though, because I'll get to it. And like, yeah.
Yeah. Don't I don't know. Don't let yourself miss out on a good film. I've been doing the same thing. 7's been on my rewatch list for so long, and I said it's been over 10 years. So, and I think I forgot to put it in my pile for October, but I might just slip it in and be like, you know what? I don't need to watch Cabin Fever again. I can watch 7 instead. And that's not a diss of Cabin Fever. I love Cabin Fever, but 7 I haven't watched in a long time.
Yeah.
And Gwyneth Paltrow, she's good in it as well. She doesn't have too much to do, but when she's in there, she brings some lightheartedness to a very dark movie.
Yeah.
That's a great movie.
Yeah. Alrighty. My next one, you probably haven't heard of or seen. Because
That is a bold statement. And
I'm going to tell you it. Have you seen Screamers?
I've heard of it. Is it more of a comedy?
No. It's everyone says it's like an underrated film that no one's ever heard of and it got reviewed very badly. But
Screamers,
I love
okay.
it. So it's like a sci-fi horror. It's essentially The Thing meets Tremors meets
it's got Peter Weller, RoboCop in it.
yeah.
I have not seen this, and this is not what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh, that post looks familiar. Interesting. Oh, based on a Philip K. Dick thing. Philip K. Dick, for those who don't know, and if you listen to the show, you probably do know, pretty much redefined sci-fi throughout like the 20th century. He did like Total Recall is based on Philip K. Dick work. Minority Report is based on Philip K. Dick. Tell me about Screamers.
All right. So this is a movie that I've always liked, but it's really airy. So there's some good bits, but I don't think everyone's really liked it. But I was looking at before, and a lot of people do like it. But it's like an unsung movie. Like it's like, a lot of people think it never got the credit it deserves. But essentially, it's in the future. They're like mining a planet, and what happens is the miners find out like it's really toxic there. And then they start going to war with the company or the mining complex, and then so it's like a proxy war, like between the scientists and then the miners. Anyway, this goes on for some time, and it becomes a bit of a wasteland because it's also like the toxic chemicals are now spilling out into the open. And anyway, the scientists go, all right, so we need to deal with these revolting miners, so we're going to build these machines that are just going to like go through the underground and then just like attack them and kill them. And these things are called screamers because they got like the sound they make is like a saw blade,
Okay.
a high pitched saw blade. And the premise is they won't attack you if you have a bracelet on. So,
like,
anyway,
is it a particular bracelet or just like any old jewelry?
No, obviously one that's programmed them to.
I'm being silly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of like the sort of world. So anyway, enters like they're still having problems. So these mercs enter, and then they find out that these machines have just gone. They're just like haywire. Like the miners are surrendering, and then like they just get chopped up by these like screamer things. So these mercs are sort of like, what's going on? Because it's sort of like desolate now. Like they also know what's going on. People are dying. Anyway, they find this boy, and they're like, "What are you doing out here?" And all this sort of thing. And he's got like this little robot teddy bear and everything. and they sort of save him, keep him aside, and then he ends up being like a robot. And that's like a really eerie moment because they're like, what the fuck? And then I find out these screeners are like being building factories underneath and they can evolve to be like they've been evolving. Then they can't trust each other because they find out like, like these things can imitate people. So like the robots have evolved and then it becomes like the thing type scenario where they can't trust each other. And, it's sort of like an actiony, it's like action horror sci-fi type sort of movie, and yeah, like they sort of don't trust each other, like they got to keep the bracelet on, so that's always a thing because like the sort of things can detect when you don't have the bracelet on, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
I was just looking it up online, and some of the images gave me some Starship Troopers vibes. I don't know whether
yeah.
Which I love that. Tina hates that movie, but I love that movie. When you talked about the little robot boy, it did make me think of artificial intelligence.
No,
I was like,
no. If you look it up, there's like comparisons, but it's really eerie that the boy's sort of like, he's just sort of there and it's like he doesn't say much, and then they find out he just like opens his mouth and starts screaming, and then like yeah, that's like a robot, and then that's a pivotal moment when the movie changes.
okay, so you just answered my question. I was sitting there, I was like, so what is it scary about it? Like, not that I'm being like, this doesn't sound scary, but I just wanted to know where the horror. And then you're like, and then the little boy's head opens up, and he starts screaming. I'm like, yep, that's terrifying. Like, you just got me.
Yeah, and well, the kills are sort of gory too because they have blades, so they just chop through things and sever things off. And then the fact that they're like you can sort of see them go through the ground. So there's like the mounds, like you see these little mounds going through. It's like that sort of fear that like sort of wasteland, these things are just going to come after you and just destroy you instantly.
You definitely colored me intrigued. Like, it definitely sounds something that I definitely want to watch. Like, I don't know why I'm getting, but I'm getting some Starship Troopers vibes. It might be nothing like that movie, but for some reason I am. I think like the
armor sort of feels.
That's what it was.
Yeah. But I was looking up, and it's got some commentary about like sort of like how something to do with the Cold War and just like how people were treated with like the mining operations and getting sick. It also like it's sort of like a commentary on like how sort of like corporations treat their workers and all that sort of stuff. So there's a bit of a commentary like that to the extreme. Actual fun fact is like you need to smoke cigarettes in that world to keep your toxicity levels down, which I think is funny.
Because the air is so toxic, like cigarettes purified for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen that before. I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. But it's like ironic,
Yeah. I love that sort of stuff. I talk about this all the time. I'm like, because you know me, there are no bad films to me. I'm like, it might not be for me, but like if every film's someone's favorite film, then there can't be any bad films. But just don't be boring. Show me something different. And I've never seen a film where they're like, hey, cigarettes will make you healthy. So I'm like, oh, cool. Well, you've just ticked a box that I've never seen. I'll check out this movie.
I wasn't sure because like I was like, oh, he's gonna think I'm talking about AI if I mention a robot boy.
I mentioned it. Yeah. Which to me is a horror film. It's so depressing. That film is a horror movie to me.
So I that movie always stuck in my mind. I could never remember the name of it, and I'd always come back to it. And I really like it because I think there's some. So I got another movie, my last movie on the list, and I'll talk about it at the end. But I have like a recurring thing that I think that I find that makes me unsettled that I found. Putting my list together, but like I think there's a sort of theme building up here with my scary unsettling movies, and this sort of fits it sort of slightly as well.
I definitely want to hear you talk about that when we get to the end of the list. I'd love to hear your summary because like that's what I was just saying before. Like it seems like most people I've spoken to about horror movies, there is that common thread of what scares them, and sometimes it's quite obvious, and sometimes there's a bit more to it. But I do love that there's a lot in common there. That brings us to number one, the film that you found unsettling, that scared you. Is this the one of all of them that scares you the most or unsettles you the most, or is it just...
So I think Pet Sematary unsettles me the most, but this movie...
It's a rough film, yeah.
This movie, I think it's like, it's unsettling, but it's also really cool. And it's also a great movie, and that's the thing.
Yes. Yes.
I just think it's a really good film, but also it's like really unsettling, and it's sort of the same thing as Screamers. Is like you just sort of want to watch it and find out what happens, and you don't know like what's going to happen and who they can trust and all that sort of thing.
Mm. It The Thing is wonderful. That's not a hot take. I think a lot of people feel that way. Um, but like the effects, like the weird dog spider thing,
Oh yeah,
um, the ending, obviously, the idea of like, is that still Kurt Russell?
yeah,
Or is it someone else? The music, obviously, any John Carpenter film is going to have fantastic music. So he's just a master of synth. Um, just, and it's another one that's pretty fun. Like until it's not. Like all those guys just hanging out like in the shed in the middle of the ice, just having a laugh and a drink and stuff. Like there's a lot of fun to it before it becomes quite creepy and
yeah,
unsettling. It's a gorgeous film. All those opening shots in the snow, like the first shot of Kurt Russell in the helicopter and all that sort of stuff. It's just it's pretty perfect, that movie.
yeah. I mean, the visuals are great, and I think it's like how it starts is very unsettling too, with the dog escaping and then like
Mm,
trying to shoot it down. Um, it's like an instant hook,
yeah.
which I think sometimes with horror movies is like like you don't see a lot of horror movies with an instant hook that goes, okay, so I need to watch this. I feel like horror movies like to get you settled and then be like, and then we're going to make you unsettled later. We're going to keep you like, fine and happy. And then we're going to unsettle you once you, like, sort of like complacent. But I feel like with The Thing, it's like it pulls you in with this like intrigue of like, what is that person doing?
Yeah, unlike and there's a big trend. There's a big trend in like the late 2000s and all through the 2010s, and it wasn't just horror, but I think horror did it first, where they're like, we're going to open the film with like a jump scare, or we're going to open the film with a gag. Saw did it a lot, where I think by the third or fourth film, they're like, hey, we're going to do a really weird kill up front and then introduce the actual story, like to,
Yeah,
to get you in. And it's not really a hook. Like it works, but it was more just like, we're just going to show you something in the first like 5 minutes of the film, so that way you're going to stick around. Here's something really
yeah,
disgusting.
yeah,
Whereas The Thing, like, and Alien does it as well, and a lot of older films is it's like we're gonna take our time. We're gonna show you something a little bit strange, and it's gonna just pique your curiosity, and you're gonna
uh,
come on the ride with us. We'll take our time to get to the scares, and it might take half the film, but we're gonna get there. There's no rush. We're just gonna build that story, get you involved in those characters, keep you a little bit confused and uncertain, and then bam, alien coming out of a chest. Bam, weird dog spider thing. Um,
yeah,
which is the beauty of those older films where and it's not all modern film. Like there's plenty of modern films that do that. Midsummer, I've talked about it on every episode in October so far because it's one of my favorite films of all time.
yeah,
Takes its time, builds things up. It does actually do that weird thing at the start as well, where it does kind of show something creepy, but it's done in a very different way. It's done in a very emotional way,
mm,
which does actually like kind of bring you in and get you involved and interested in that main character.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, the Thing, yeah, shooting at the dog. I'd forgotten about that. It's been a little while since I've seen The Thing, but you're right. It does. I was like, it's so beautiful at the start. You're like, what? When they're shooting a dog? I forgot about that. I just think of the helicopter and the snow and that blue sky. Like it's just
Yeah, yeah.
so well shot. Yeah, it's great. It's a great flick.
Yeah, I mean, like I like the tension where, like, they finally figure out this thing can, like, replicate and then mimic you and then take all your knowledge, and like it's really hard to spot because, like, I can't remember is it the blood, like the blood that it doesn't like fire. That's the sort of
Yeah,
it's
fire is the
yeah,
weakness.
but it's like a perfect like alien. Like it just like it can take your memories, and all that sort of thing, your mannerisms. But someone was saying that it can't mimic clothes, so they still have to get the alien still has to get dressed.
It's so weird that that's the line. It's like, no, it'll get you your memories, but it won't get you clothes.
Yeah, which like is like a theory with the ending with like who's not the alien, because like the guy apparently like the not Kurt Russell, the other guy has like a piercing. So they're like,
Yeah,
well, the
Keith
guy,
David.
yeah, the guy can't like the alien's not gonna like replicate a piercing unless he like put his clothes on and then put the piercing in. So that's like one fan theory to say like Kurt Russell's like the sort of alien thing. But the visuals are great. Like the special effects are great in that movie. So many good scares. Monsters are good.
No, absolutely. And it's a remake, like an old 30s or 40s film, maybe 50s. The Thing from Outer Space.
Yeah.
Um, I was just looking it up to try and find the original, and I found out that someone did a claymation remake of The Thing called Thingu, and it's The Thing, but if it landed in Pingu's world, which sounds pretty amazing.
That's hilarious.
So
Also,
I definitely want to say that.
Sorry?
So I definitely want to say that.
Yeah. I think the other thing I like about the Thing is the isolation, which makes it, and then the storm. So like all these other things in the environment, take it to an extreme because you're like, well, how are they going to make this more intense? You're like, well, they got no contact. There's a blizzard. They can't go outside, so they can't escape this thing, even though so they're confined to these like tight quarters.
I am surprised they haven't done more with the film. I know they did a prequel back in 2011, which I actually really liked. I know a lot of people didn't like it because it felt very similar, but I did like that one from 2011. I thought it was quite fun. But I'm surprised they haven't done more with it. Like John Carpenter's not going to do anything else with it. You can't ruin that first film, but we just saw with Predator where they put the Predator in kind of Native American times, with the Apaches, and Predator's been in New York City, and Predator's been on another planet, and same with Alien. Like Alien's kind of been all around. Like, why not put the thing in different climates? Like, why not put the thing in the rainforest and have like a weird gorilla elephant thing? Like, what? Like, why not? I feel like the Thing is ripe for franchise. I know not everything needs to be a franchise. I'm certainly not saying they need to, but the Thing feels the kind of movie where they could do a lot more with it. You could tell more stories. I had the same conversation about I Know What You Did Last Summer recently. I'm like, they've remade every slasher film except for that one. It feels like, and why not? You could totally do I Know What You Did Last Summer again. And the Thing I feel is very similar. Like, you could do a lot with that property. And just sitting there, like, why wouldn't you? I don't know.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell more interesting stories?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to I wouldn't know what to do with it because I feel like there's just been variations of like that whole mimic sort of type thing where things mimic or like get taken over. So I feel like there's variants of those stories through other movies or other like sci-fi horrors where people like get possessed by an alien sort of thing. You don't know if they're them or not. So I feel like there's variants of that.
That's a good point. Very well thought out and logical point there. I just want to see weird animal monsters.
I don't think you can redo like the kind of monsters and effects in this day and age and get the same result. I think because it's like obviously the mimics obviously doing a terrible job at trying to like mimic the thing, and it's always monstrous. It's like bleh.
That's another film that I watched for the first time this year. Mimic. I didn't mind. I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
But nothing comes close to The Thing. The only film that I would put on par with being as gross as The Thing, because The Thing is gross.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't really talk about that. Like, it is cool, but like
it is gross. Yeah.
that transformation stuff is gross. The only thing I'd say is as gross or maybe more gross is The Fly, which is also another remake, but that one with Jeff Goldblum is just a nightmare. It's so disgusting.
I saw that I was watching through bits and pieces of the Thing, but the bit where he like goes to like the guy's like about to do like the chest sort of vault thing, and then as he like presses on the chest to like resuscitate someone, his hands go through because the chest opens with teeth. And,
Yeah.
he's off his hands.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Pretty gross. That's a great list. And I'd seen most of them. The only one I haven't seen is Screamers, which I'm really intrigued by. The more I think about it, the more I want to watch it. Like, I do want to see what this movie is. So I am really intrigued. But the rest of them I've seen, and I think it's a great list, and also different from anything anyone else has mentioned.
That's
No
good.
one's talked about any of those films in the last couple of weeks, which is good as well.
Yeah, my horror is not gory, bloody at all. It's more, I would say it's more like isolation,
Mm.
sort of similar to what you were saying. But I was trying to find another movie to put on this list, which was a Frankenstein movie, but I cannot find it. I'm scared it's the one with Robert De Niro. um, so I just remember watching it like at like some when I was like a teenager, like sometime in the morning, and there's just a scene where Frankenstein's like in the snow and he just like beats someone to death. I think it's like, so Frankenstein monster beats Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein to death in the snow or someone. And I just remember that making me really uncomfortable. Um, and then so that's like for me, I sort of noticed the theme in my list, and that's the snow.
I
Um,
was thinking that as well. There's a lot of cold. The Shining, The Thing.
yeah, Screamers has a lot of snow stuff as well. And yeah, and I was like, I feel like the snow is like a really like unsettling like theme for me that I sort of think is cool, but also like I feel like it's very unsettling as well for horror movies that I find very unsettling.
I think the snow is so scary because it is a really wonderful setting for horror. And I think it comes back to that isolation, the idea of like, because whenever you see snow in horror films, it's never like snow-capped mountains or like cottages with perfectly like snow-covered rooftops. It is the woods. It's the middle of nowhere. So the idea of just nothing but white and it blends in with the clouds, so it just feels like almost like you're in like the Matrix, like that Matrix, like in the Matrix, has just
Yeah,
white everywhere, like the just in the void of nothingness, but it's all white. I think that's part of it, but also cold, especially the snow. I feel it like it's a temperature that makes you feel quite vulnerable because as people, as humans, we can't we can't survive the snow. Like we need to layer up. We need to make sure we're well protected because our body can't handle that temperature drop. So it's just like, oh, whilst there are scary things happening, there are monsters. Also, your body's not equipped for this climate, so you're like on a time limit.
yeah.
um,
It's a great setting for movies. I really enjoy like things in the snow,
mm.
especially when I feel like it's for me, it's like a good setting um, for like
Also,
for
just like a blood splatter on snow looks very cool.
yeah.
Like just that red splash on pure white snow. Um, That's I agree. Isolation and snow does seem like pretty much the theme here.
Isn't
Oh, is
that?
it?
Did you think that's weird coming from me? That's like that's what scares me the most, aside from like dying animals.
I mean, Seven doesn't really fit the bill either, but Seven's just a really cool film.
Yeah,
So that can fall under just coolest
I
movie.
feel though like that's like me saying, "Oh, that's cool," rather than that makes me feel uneasy.
Well, Seven comes back to my thing about lack of control because like it's just like someone is taking kind of destiny into their own hands. But
Yeah,
Isolation, no, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think that like different things scare different people. Like the when I was speaking to Harley and Tyler last week, like Harley's big thing, it was like spirits and exorcisms. Like that was a big part of it.
yeah,
But also all of her films were stemmed in family and grief. Um,
yeah,
and I was like, and that's why she was able to speak so beautifully about the connection of like horror being a controlled emotional release, that sort of thing. Um, so like that's also very personal. I think isolation is also very personal. Like as people, you know, we thrive better with friends and family and community than on our own. And no one wants to die alone. Like, do you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like, I think that's, a very kind of not carnal, sorry, but like a very kind of base human feeling, which is like, we don't want to die ever. And if we do have to die, like, we want to be around loved ones and people to support us. Like, dying alone in the snow at the hands of something from another planet sounds pretty terrifying.
Or
Uh,
just the snow, like
yeah.
just the snow, like freezing to death. Like that's pretty.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just dying alone. Like, yeah. So I think that's really rational, and I think it's very fair.
Yeah, I
Uh,
feel like the more realistic it is, even though we're talking about monsters and stuff movies, like
mm,
I think the realistic part of the environments are what makes it really scary for me. Like
yeah,
yeah, that the more realistic it is, the scarier it is for me, I think.
Well, that's
Aside
one.
from the monsters, like the setting wise. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I was talking about The Descent. Like that's one of the films that scared me the most. And it had nothing to do with the monsters. The monsters are scary and they do provide decent jump scares. But it's five women who are lost in a cave. They can't find their way out. They've fallen down a shaft and they can't get back up. No one knows they're there. And they have to try and find a way out. And also things are starting to kill them. And now they're kind of killing each other so that they don't get killed. Like it's that whole idea of like we're trapped, we're isolated, no one knows we're here, there's no way out. It's cold and it's dark and there are things here. So I think that's very similar, like
Yeah.
tonally to what you're talking about as well. Just the idea of being alone and not being able to get out of that situation. Like, that's pretty scary.
Yeah. I also find I mean, no, this didn't make my list, but like demonic stuff does like freak me out. Like I feel like that whole spirit stuff, because I've actually heard stories from like people I know who've experienced it, like sort of story, like actual stories, like of them messing around with stuff, and I feel like that stuff freaks me out in a different way. Like like demons and religious undead sort of stuff.
Yeah, it depends on the demons. Like if it's like demons that are kind of like monsters.
Not little Nicky demons.
No, I didn't mean. I was thinking more like the movie Demons, actually, where it's like people who become possessed, or even like Exorcist, where like they go green and stuff. Like that doesn't really scare me. But then like Sinister is one where it's a demon who possesses children and makes them kill their parents. Like that's pretty scary.
Like The Conjuring, I feel like Conjuring made me jump a few times. I wasn't scared of it, but like it's definitely like unsettling.
It's a really wonderful film. Like that film is rated MA because it is scary. Like there's pretty much no swearing, there's very little violence, there's no sex. It is rated MA because it is a scary film. Like it is just deemed too scary for children to watch. Too scary for anyone who's not an adult to watch. Which is a pretty rare. Like you don't only get horror films rated, like restricted due to the fact they're just too scary. It's normally all the additional things that come with it. But no, that's a great film. And that one apparently had a bit of a cursed set as well. Like one of the actresses got very sick. Joey King, who's wonderful. She's but she like had allergies or skin disease or something that she'd never had before or since. But during making The Conjuring, weird things started happening.
No, there's a whole sort of bit with that. Like, because didn't they get the person who owns the house now to sort of come? Or was it the previous people that were saying not to do it or something? There's like a whole sort of thing where there's involving the current owner of the house and then the previous, people who've like actually experienced it, because apparently it's based on a true story.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the people involved were. I think it was previous owners. I think maybe it was even the people who the movie is loosely based on, like the family that were like experiencing the possessions. Sure. But no, that's a great film. Although I've talked about this a few times now, but the thing about that film that's so brilliant and frustrating is that there are very few jump scares, and what they do instead is they build and build and build and build and build, and then just cut to a new scene. I'm like, but no, I was going to get a jump scare and feel release, and now I feel really tight and stressed.
No, they deny it, so they let it bank up.
Yeah, that's it. It's well, that's a really good list. I'm glad to hear about The Conjuring, so I wasn't sure if that's the kind of film you would have seen, because I feel like modern.
It was on my list, but just I wanted to talk about Seven more than The Conjuring, because I thought The Conjuring is too it would have been brought up already.
It was brought up last week, so good call.
Yeah.
What I like about your list is it's a lot of older films. It's more 80s and 90s. Last week we had a lot of modern films, which is not a problem at all. But it's nice to hear a bit of variation, and even my list I think really started in the 2000s. I had nothing older than the 2000s in there, so it was good to hear you speaking of some older films, and some really wonderful movies. But now I have to check out Screamers, because I know those other four are great, and it's you generally put in a pretty solid list. So
yeah, cool.
Well, that means we have one more thing to do before we wrap up the show, and that is do the Halloween rapid fire question.
I always
Uh,
suck at these, but let's go.
these ones are very monster focused. Like when Tina was doing it for me, she was like, "Oh, it's just about monsters." I was like, "Yeah, because it's Halloween. Like, we're just like costumes, monsters, dressing. I don't know. Like, just keep it fun." There's only like 4 or 5 questions, so it's pretty
Yeah,
short.
I should have
Uh,
done a quiz. I should have prepared a quiz for this one because this one is like your thing.
we can you can always come back and quiz me, um, or we can do it next Halloween.
Yeah,
We've got plenty of Halloweens ahead of us. All right, Josh, your favorite movie monster? Who is it?
Dracula.
Wow, really? I wasn't expecting that.
I think
And
so. Yeah.
do you go Bela Lugosi back to the 30s of the old black and white Dracula, or are you going Gary Oldman Dracula, or are you going Dracula 2000 with vitamin C?
Never that one. Oh, I don't know. Like, I think Gary Oldman.
That's a weird movie. I haven't watched that in a while. I had to study it for literature, I think, one of my writing classes, and that is a weird movie. It's beloved, so I should go back and give it another go.
Yeah,
Um,
vampires are cool.
I just love Well, that's what I was saying that to Tina. She was like, "You like."
Pre, mainstream vampires are cool.
That's what I was saying to Tina. I was like, I was obsessed with vampires growing up. I loved vampires, um, and then like I lost interest around like you know Twilight, Vampire Diaries, that sort of thing. And not that those shows and movies don't have their place. Like, there's an audience for those films, and if that's a gateway to horror, then why not? Like, if people watch that and then want to go and look at more vampire stuff, like for me, Underworld was a big one.
Yeah.
Um, but Dracula, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to be like the Gill Man from Creature of the Black Lagoon, or
I like it aesthetically, but I just don't think there's enough there to love.
No, he doesn't have enough to love. That's why he's always kidnapping women in the lagoon. Alrighty. Which is the scariest movie monster?
Oh. Are we talking about classic or just like across the
Any
spectrum?
monster. It can be Freddy, Jason. It can be a monster from last year.
I didn't like hang on. I had a thought in my head, but I think we're going for grotesque here. I don't know. I think the thing. I'm gonna go with the thing. Like one
It's
of
pretty
them.
scary. Yeah, I can't remember what I said. I would like to say that I said The Fly, but now I can't remember what I said. But I would go with The Thing. I think it's a good one. You don't want to bump into him in the middle of the night, so I'll go with that one. Something a bit more fun. If you had to take 2 different movie monsters and make them fight, just like Freddy and Jason, who are you putting in a fight?
That's cool. That's a cool question. I would want to say, I definitely want to say Dracula versus, like a xenomorph.
That is not something I was expecting, and I love it.
It's so ridiculous. Like,
Yeah. I just thought of I think mine was zombies. I can't remember what I did. I think I did zombies fighting something. But now I'm like, oh well, clearly the Thing versus the Blob, because they'll just get stuck to each other and become this weird hybrid, like chewing gum monster.
it's gonna be ridiculous. Like something supernatural versus something that's like a hunter, like an elite hunter.
I would never have picked that, but I want to see that too. And then the last question, the most ridiculous of the questions, because as you know, as franchises grow and they run out of ideas, sequels get very strange settings. So, which movie monster do you want to see set in space, or Hawaii, or the future?
Definitely not Jason.
Jason's been to space and the future, so he hasn't gone tropical yet.
You know what? There's a cool idea with. So I think what we need to see more of in general is more folklore from other countries with their horror folklore. like because like obviously with every like culture has like their own sort of horror. Sort of, it'd be cool to see more like folklore from like you said, like like a tropical, like let's see some like folklore from like South America. Like that would be some cool folklore, but
Mm.
like with like the horror that they could sort of put together. My brain's sort of fried at the moment because I'm trying to think, but
Well, it's interesting that because my answer was zombies on like a desert island or like on Hawaii,
yeah,
because it's like it's isolated, so there's no escape. Like it's either you drown or you get eaten by zombies or you get burnt by the volcano that's erupting. Because I wanted to add some pressure. I'm like,
that's yeah.
that was my one because it's a silly question, but I was like, well, actually, that would be kind of cool.
I would like to see someone's like folklore, like horror folklore, in a sort of tropical location. I know that's a very like messy answer, but
That's fine.
I,
No
I
wrong answers.
yeah, I really like it when like people like bring their folklore into a horror setting. Yeah,
Yeah, like one of the some of the best stuff we've seen recently is like the introduction of the Krampus into the mainstream. Like I think there's some more stories to be told about that character, but that's a cool folklore. The Witch, I don't know if you watched The Witch, that came out a few years ago, and that was like it was actually based on like American folklore, but it was just told in such a different way, and executed in such a different way that it worked really well. But I agree, like give me the weird goblins and imps and just weird monsters that they come from Europe. Like give me some of those movie
yeah.
monsters.
Give me some more European sort of things. Yeah, I definitely dig them. Like,
Give me like a dwarf that collects human ears or something like.
yeah, I like because like I feel like with horror, like I'll look at something and I'm like, like Paranormal Activity, like 10, like no thanks, like surprise me.
I had made a very similar comment recently about Paranormal Activity. Like I haven't seen the first one, and I don't dislike it. Like it's a fine film, um, and I can see the appeal. But at the same time, I was like, oh, like this film exists because you had a this is not a criticism, but this film exists because that person had a budget of so much money. This is what they could do with it, and they could kind of do some jump scares, which is great. But now there's like 7 of them, and I'm more interested in seeing stuff that I haven't seen before. So I like the idea of bringing like monsters from folklore out into the mainstream and letting people see weird things.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
like,
do what they did in the 80s and 90s and take like Disney characters. Like there's a Pinocchio horror film. There's a Rumpelstiltskin horror film. Like get like the Red Riding. Oh, there was a Red Riding Hood horror film which people didn't really like. I don't think. But
isn't like the classic movie monsters all from like folklore anyway? Like Dracula and the Mummy and like werewolves. They're like based in European sort of stories and you know that sort of thing. So they've all evolved into the mainstream, starting off being like folklore.
yeah, definitely, absolutely. I think the good thing is like with horror, you can take anything. Like you can take anything every day and put a dark twist on it. Like there's probably, and this is gonna sound really weird, but there's probably a version of like Greek mythology that you can do as a horror film. You could probably like take like like you can definitely take Egyptian gods and do a horror film.
Yeah. The other thing too is like don't give me modern day stuff as well. Like I feel like Prey really made me interested in seeing things in different settings.
Yeah,
Just yeah, don't necessarily give me something that's modern day. Like I feel like it's you can do a lot with less.
I
Like
heard
with
someone talking about Prey and like so for the next one, can we have the Predator be in like the Jack the Ripper times? And they think it's Jack the Ripper, but it's really the Predator. And I
I
was like, why not? Like,
I heard they were pitching like this movie like years ago, and then like a medieval one as well. But I don't know how that would go. Like with like with swords and all that sort of stuff. I thought this one was going to be a weird one, but it turned out fantastic.
I could see it with swords, as long as there's no magic. If they did like wizards and stuff, that would be a bit difficult. But I could see
Well,
it with swords and
I think
because she was an archer. She's like did a lot of archery and stuff. So like it'd just be more of that.
the theme has to be on point. So with Predator, it has to be about your instinct and your skills, surviving the terrain. And I think that's why Prey works so well. because it's just boiled down to that. And they changed the predator to match, because obviously you come in with like shoulder missiles, everyone's gone.
Yeah, I like that movie a lot. I think it got a little bit overhyped for me because it took a little while for me to get into it. But once you get to that scene where they're using them as bait and like it's all misty and stuff, like then I was just in. I was like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, but it was good. I like your answers. I think those are some good answers to the horror rapid fire.
Like the typical me answers, like they're very like vague, unanswered.
Nice one. Well, before we wrap up the show for this week, do you have anything you want to plug? I know you're still working away on. Have we announced the title? We have, haven't we? We're not calling it Project Rust Guard anymore.
I'm working on a action adventure game based on pollution called Junklands. You can follow it on Instagram and Twitter.
Nice one. And the Deadleaf Games on Instagram, is that right?
Yeah, that's the handle. Yeah.
Nice one. Every time I see an update, I just get so excited. I tell you that all the time as well. Like every time I see an update, because I'm like, I know the backstory. I know like how long has been working on it. So when I just see like ideas brought to fruition, I just get very excited.
Yeah, it's definitely like my baby. I think, yeah.
I was just thinking about like another game you were working on like a decade ago, and I won't name the name because I know that like you have mixed feelings about old projects, but I would love to see that game to come back. It was a motorcycle game, and that's all I'll say.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Oh, I love that so
my
much.
memories come up all the yeah. I think at that time would have been fun to do, but yeah. No.
I have a Death Spuds T-shirt in this house somewhere. I don't think it fits anymore, but that was great. I remember we would drive around and I would pitch dialogue to you, like because there's like a side character who's like a mechanic, whatever, called Randall, and I would just like pitch like hey dude, like it just like really like stoner burnout dialogue, and you're like, yes, let's do that.
How would you even describe that game? Motorcycle themed adventure game.
Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
I would call it Spuds of Anarchy. That's what I would do. That's how I would pitch it. That was really fun. I would like to see Death Spuds in the future once you get through Junklands.
Yeah.
Nice one. Excellent. Well, before we wrap up, I will do one more plug as well. I'm not plugging any of my stuff this month, being Halloween. I'm plugging all my guest stuff. Last week, I spoke to some wonderful people from the US, Tyler Hansen and Harley Bronwyn. They're making a fan film. It's called Scream the Fan Favorites. You can find them on Instagram right now. And if you type in Scream the Fan Favorites on Indiegogo, you can support their campaign. Please do it. They're very lovely. And it's a very, very cool project. So we want to give them all our support. And it's like $5. Like you just have to give $5 and you can make a dream come true. And that's what we're all about here. Josh has done crowdfunding in the past. It's very stressful. It's very time consuming. So if people can just throw a couple of dollars away, it makes all the difference. Excellent. That's going to do it for this week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob. Thank you again to my guest, Josh. It's always lovely having you on the show, and he'll be back again soon. I think next time we might be talking about 90s. Although you want to talk about video games because the trailer for Super Mario came out. And I'm all about that. That trailer is so good. That's going to do it. Thank you again for listening. Remember, everyone, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. We'll see you next week.
Bye.